contrast coloured bobble, you will need to drop the contrast coloured yarn into the work on the row before the bobble is knitted. This will be given as an instruction in your knitting pattern. So you work to where you need to place the bobble. I'm working a purl row because the bobble is knitted in on a right side row. I take the contrast coloured yarn and then I simply purl one stitch with it, leave the length of yarn and the tail hanging down from the work, and complete the rest of the row as instructed in your knitting pattern. As you can see here, the contrast colour is ready in the work for the bobble to be knitted in on this next right side row. So you work right up to where the bobble is in the work. You're then going to knit the bobble using that contrast coloured yarn, so you put your needle into the next stitch ready to knit. I'm just crossing my cream yarn, my background colour yarn, with the yarn for the bobble, and the instruction is to knit into the front and then the back and then the front and then the back before releasing that stitch off the needle. You then turn the work around so the wrong side is facing, and at this point I would just give a firm but gentle pull on the tail of the contrast yarn and on your main colour. You then slip the next stitch as if you're purling, and then pull on the yarn and nice and firmly purl the remaining 3 stitches in the contrast coloured yarn. Turn the work again so the right side is facing. Slip the first stitch knitwise, then continue to knit nice and firmly the next 3 stitches. You can then give another little pull, firm but gentle, on the yarns at the back, and then pulling the fabric in the bobble down so I can get my needle, the point of my left needle, into the stitches so that I can pass them. It can be a bit tricky to get the first one going. Once you've got the first one going, you pass it over the first stitch and off the needle. So you've just got one stitch in your contrast colour on the needle. You then need to pull firmly again on the tail, on the background colour yarn, push the bobble firmly forward, the tail of the yarn, of the contrast colour yarn, over to the left, a bit like intarsia knitting. Pick up your main colour and then knit that first stitch, or work whatever stitch your pattern says after the bobble. Then again, gentle pull on all the ends till the bobble's nice and tight there, and then you continue to the end of the row. Okay, at the end of that row now, you can see that the bobble is nice and firm there at the front of the knitting. At the back of the work, you will have the two ends of the contrast colour. Now, I would not fasten those ends off until you've worked a good few rows, maybe 5 or 6 rows or even more above the bobble, so that then when you've moved away from it, you can then grab both ends, and I'll show you now how to knot them together, although I wouldn't do it at this point. I would leave it, as I said, until I've done a few more rows above it, but then you just simply double knot the two ends together with the contrast colour yarn. And then your bobble is nice and neat. Those ends can then be either darned into the back of the stitches there for the bobble, or they can simply be trimmed off, leaving probably about half an inch or so there at the back of the work. And that's your contrast coloured bobble.